Good evening. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Board of meeting of November 23rd, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you for joining us tonight from your home. We are following the governor's state of emergency orders and are streaming tonight's meeting virtually. All board members, staff members, and applicants are participating remotely. While this is a public meeting, please be aware that this is not a public hearing. Just as was the case for in-person planning and zoning meetings, there is no opportunity for the public to speak during this meeting. If you have comments about any of these cases, we encourage you to reach out to the staff case manager or applicant by email or phone. You may reach out to our board members to email or by phone as well, or during the public speaks out portion of any regularly scheduled town council meeting. You can find all that information on the town's website. Because we are meeting remotely, I'll be calling on each member individually to confirm their attendance at this meeting. All motions, seconds, and votes will be verbally obtained. So our first item on the agenda is roll call. And I will call on each of you and state if you are present. Don Hamilton.
Present.
Nicole Samuel.
Present.
Mary Jo Hill.
Present.
Chuck Montgomery. Stephen Crutchfield.
Present.
Jessica Pearson.
Present.
John Sorrell. Jessica McClure.
Present.
And I, Dan McFarland, am also here. Before we start, I'd like to welcome our newest board member, Jessica McClure. Jessica will be serving in the role of our ETJ member, and that's for, if you're not familiar with ETJ, that's the extraterritorial jurisdiction. And she was appointed by the Wake County Board of Commissioners at the November 16th meeting. Welcome, Jessica. We're glad to have you joining us. Our next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda for tonight. And is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Chuck Montgomery.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second, Don Hamilton.
Thank you, Chuck and Don. All those in favor? I'll call each your name. Don Hamilton.
Aye.
Nicole Samuel.
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill.
Aye.
Chuck Montgomery.
Aye.
Stephen Crutchfield.
Aye.
Jessica Pearson.
Aye.
John Sorrell. Jessica McClure.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, so the agenda passes unanimously. Our next item is the approval of the minutes from our October 26th meeting. Is there a motion for to approve those minutes?
So moved. Chuck Montgomery.
And do I have a second?
Second, Steve Crutchfield.
Thank you, Chuck and Steve. And again, a roll call. I'll call on each of you and to state your vote with an aye or a nay. Don Hamilton.
Aye.
Nicole Samuel.
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill.
Aye.
Chuck Montgomery.
Aye.
Stephen Crutchfield.
Aye.
Jessica Pearson.
Aye.
John Sorrell.
Aye.
Jessica McClure.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Passes unanimously. Moving on, we have one case this evening before us. It is case number 20 REZ02, Chandler Cove Rezoning. Staff member Katie Dry will be sharing the staff's presentation, and then we'll hear from the applicant. Following the applicant's remarks, all board members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff or the applicant. Thank you, Ms. Dry. You may proceed. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair and Planning and Zoning Board. This is a request to rezone two very small portions of property in the approved Chandler Cove subdivision from resource recreation to residential 12. This case is a relatively simple request. There is a fair amount of background, however, to the site, so to help explain the case, this presentation will provide some information on the history of the site. The land was previously part of the Hollybrook neighborhood, and in 2015, at the request of the property owners in Hollybrook, the entire subdivision was annexed into Cary by the North Carolina General Assembly. In 2016, the Town Council approved and established Cary zoning for the Hollybrook properties. The two very small areas proposed for this rezoning are highlighted in yellow. They are part of the original Hollybrook subdivision, which is outlined here in red. The subdivision was initially approved and developed under Wake County's regulations, with phases of development platted in 1987 and 1992. This map shows the current zoning approved for Hollybrook in 2016. Factors in the LDO and recorded plats for the subdivision were considered when determining zoning for the land. Existing residential lots on Brook Cross Drive and a portion of Hollybrook Drive were zoned Residential 8, and the larger lots on Coralberry Circle and along the southern end of Hollybrook Drive were zoned R20. Open space areas were zoned Resource Recreation, and as part of the rezoning process, the Hollybrook Homeowners Association requested that a 12-acre area at that time owned by the HOA be rezoned to R12. This area was shown on the recorded subdivision plat as potential development area and utility area. HOA representatives explained that the property was no longer needed for utility purposes, and they intended to convey the area for future development to assist Hollybrook with the cost of installing public water and sewer service within the existing subdivision. A development plan for the Chandler Cove subdivision, which is outlined in red, was approved by Cary in 2019 for 24 residential lots. This area, which is for the proposed rezoning, totals approximately 0.13 acres in size within the subdivision of Chandler Cove. Chandler Cove is currently under construction. However, lots and right-of-way within the development have not yet been platted. So to summarize, the current zoning is Resource Recreation. The proposed zoning is R12. No zoning conditions are proposed. This is consistent with the zoning for the approved Chandler Cove development and Hollybrook. So I'd like to zoom in here just to clarify the request. The Chandler Cove development plan, which is shown in red, includes area zoned R12 and two small areas currently zoned Resource Recreation. One reason for the request is that the larger of the two RR areas is located at the rear of one of the subdivision lots outlined in blue. If rezoned, this area will allow the developer to plat a more uniform shaped building envelope for use of the lot. The rezoning this RR area to R12 will also create sufficient area to allow the current lot in blue to be divided, which would result in one additional lot within the Chandler Cove subdivision, bringing the total number of lots to 25. The smaller of the two areas proposed to be rezoned, which is 0.01 acres, is within the right-of-way for the road extending into Chandler Cove, which is also outlined in blue. When subdivisions are approved, the underlying zoning of the land within the new right-of-way is not shown on the zoning map. So this area technically does not require rezoning. However, the applicant chose to include it in their request to create a more consistent zoning for the entire area encompassed by the development. This slide shows the conditions within the areas to be zoned Resource Recreation, or that are currently zoned Resource Recreation. Prior to approval of the development plan, the two areas proposed for rezoning outlined in red were traversed by a gravel road. In addition, the overall area zoned RR also contains utility lines within associated easements, which still exist within the approved Chandler Cove plan. The point being, the area was not proposed for community recreation or undisturbed open space. Our analysis with the Imagine Cary community plan finds that the live and shake chapters were most applicable. The rezoning of the larger the two RR areas provides an opportunity to create one additional lot within the boundaries of an already approved subdivision. A lot would be consistent with other lots already planned in Chandler Cove. One intent of the shape chapter is for development to be designed in a manner that complements surrounding properties. A related objective is for orderly development that efficiently uses and capitalizes on existing public infrastructure and reduces the need for costly capital improvements. the creation of an additional residential lot and an approved subdivision without the need to extend utilities and construct additional publicly maintained roads supports these policies. A final note regarding transitions. Development in Chandler Cove will not extend into any of the RR areas closer than where existing utility easements are already located. We also note that the subject property, as well as Chandler Cove and Hollybrook, are within the suburban neighborhood designation of the Imagine Cary Future Growth Framework Map. A virtual neighborhood meeting for the proposed rezoning was held on August 12th of this year. 4 nearby property owners who attended the meeting did not express opposition to the proposal. The attendees asked questions regarding the need for the rezoning, if zoning conditions are proposed, the timing of the construction of Chandler Cove, the use of the land, questions about whether it still belongs to the Hollybrook HOA. Staff has received 1 phone call and 1 email regarding the case, both of which asked for general information and neither expressed any concerns about the proposed rezoning. Council held a virtual public hearing on October 22nd, 2020. There were no speakers other than the applicant and no questions or comments from council. The town staff summary of analysis for the rezoning request finds that the case is consistent with the Imagine Cary community plan. We find that the rezoning supports policies from the Live and Shape chapter, which were both applicable. We also note that the addition of 1 lot similar to other lots in the subdivision aligns with the Live policies 2 and 5 by providing more housing choices and supporting infill development. The landscape area and open space in the adjacent Hollybrook development also supports Shape Policy 8 regarding the provision of appropriate transitions between land uses. So some of the questions that staff considered when we analyzed this case, and these are questions that the board could consider as well, in addition to others, was we looked at, is the zoning that's being proposed appropriate? We also looked at, are the transitions sufficient? And then as a general note, this request is for a general use district of R12, so conditions may not be added with this particular type of zoning request. So this concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's representative, Charles Walker, is here to share the justification for the request. Mr. Walker, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you very much. Katie did a very complete summary of the project. The reason for the zoning request is simply that during the design process and our clients working with the HOA of the Hollybrook subdivision for a more consistent lot layout in the area, the overall boundary of the R12 property had been tweaked and pulled and turned a little bit. And so what ended up happening is the resulting tract of land, which became or is becoming Chandler Cove, didn't mirror the exact zoning lines that were done by the town way back when. So what we're just trying to do is to make sure that everything within Chandler Cove is R12, everything outside of Chandler Cove and adjacent to us between Chandler Cove and the Hollybrook subdivision remains with the RR jurisdiction. As Katie said, these are 2 very small triangles. The total zoning case itself is only 0.13 acres. The larger triangle is a little over 5,000 square feet. The smaller triangle is about 600 square feet. Again, the reason why we didn't do any conditions is because that mirrors the current zoning that the town put on the area several years ago. So just for cleanliness and clarity and comfort for everybody, that was a decision that we made. We have been in contact with the Hollybrook HOA since day one. They are excited about the project. We're excited about the project, and we're just trying to take care of these 2 small triangles to clean up the project completely. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Now, for the presentation, now I'm going to ask each board member to share any questions you may have, and I'll go one by one, if I may. Don Hamilton, do you have any questions for either the staff or the applicant?
No, sir, I don't.
Thank you. Nicole, Samuel, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Mary Jo, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Thank you. Chuck Montgomery?
No questions.
Steve Crutchfield?
No questions.
Jessica Pearson?
I also do not have any questions. It was very straightforward. Thank you.
Sure. John Sorrell?
No questions. Thank you.
Jessica McClure, do you have any questions?
No questions.
And I do not have any questions either. So if there's no questions, I would entertain a motion on 20 REZ02 Chandler Cove. And your options for motions are before you. Would anybody care to offer a motion?
I'll make a motion. This is Chuck Montgomery. I hope my wording is going to be adequate. I move a recommendation for approval of request 20 REZ2 as consistent with the relevant policies of the Imagine Cary Community Plan.
Actually, Chuck, can you see the screen in front of you? The motion that I think the preferred motion is right in front of you on the screen. And the reason I mention that is I think you used the word approved, and I don't think that's a word that the staff is comfortable with us using.
I said recommended approval, but I'll go exactly this way. I move that the board find case number 20 REZ02 is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans for the reasons set forth in the staff report, presentation, and discussion by the Planning and Zoning Board. I hope that's much better.
Thank you. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that, Don Hamilton.
Thank you, Don. Is there any discussion on the motion? And I will call on each individual for that. Don, any discussion? Well, let me start back with Chuck. Chuck, you made the motion. So, Chuck?
This just looks very straightforward, and it looks like a very positive thing to do. They're doing some good cleanup, and it seems to benefit everybody. So, in favor of it.
Thanks. Don, you seconded?
I did. I agree with everything the applicant and staff had to say. Overall, it just makes common sense to make these changes.
Okay, thank you. Mary Jo, do you have any comments or discussion?
I do not. I agree with Chuck's assessment.
Thank you. Steve Crutchfield?
No further discussion.
Okay, thank you. Jessica Pearson?
I agree with my fellow board members. I'd also just like to say I always appreciate hearing about whether there was any public comment or discussion, and that was included in the staff report. So I'm good. Thank you.
Great. John Sorrell?
No discussion. Seems very straightforward. Thank you.
And Jessica McClure? Any comments or discussion?
No additional. Thanks.
Okay. And I'll just add that I remember when this case came before, the original case came before the board, and the Holly Cross HOA brought it, which now it's come back to us for what I really see as kind of some technical corrections at the time. And I think that looking at the R as basically being a riparian buffer area that utilities are in, it still maintains the buffer between Chandler Cove and Holly Cross. And so I don't think it really disturbs that. It's really just a technical correction. So, so with that, I will call on each of you to please state your vote. And it's, so I will start off with that. So Don Hamilton?
Aye.
Nicole Samuel?
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill?
Aye.
Steve Crutchfield?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Chuck Montgomery, I jumped out of order.
I'm
Chuck
sorry.
Montgomery? Okay, Steve?
Aye.
Jessica Pearson?
Aye.
John Sorrell? Jessica McClure?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion that the case is moved forward with the unanimous recommendation. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the applicant, and thank you, staff. Now we're going to move on to, that was the only case we had for this evening, so I'm going to move on to our new and old business. One item is the Planning and Zoning Board's work plan for 2020-2021. And I appreciate that it's been put up on our screen. At our last meeting last month, the plan was presented for members to review and is being presented on our screen now. Is there any discussion regarding the work plan? If I'm not hearing any, I would, if there's no discussion, would somebody care to make a motion regarding the work plan for the coming year?
Dan, can I ask a question? This is Jessica Pearson.
Yes.
At our last meeting, staff told us that they were looking into a couple things. One being the parking requirement and things like that. Does that fall under our work plan, or is that something different? Is that like staff-driven reports?
Jessica, this is Deborah Grannon. I can answer that for you. The results of the traffic study will then go into a report to council. And if we do a land development ordinance amendment related to the parking study, then you'll see it as part of a land development amendment.
Okay, thank you.
But if you're interested, in seeing anything like that, please feel free. Aaron Puckett, who is operating the PowerPoint tonight, is taking the lead on being the liaison to the consultant with the multifamily residential parking study that's underway. So, once we have the final reports and things of that nature, you'll certainly be able to read or, get copies of any of that. But yes, you will see that if changes are proposed through the LDO amendment process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other board members have any other comments or items for discussion or questions? Hearing none, would anybody care to make a motion?
Moving on. Just
This is
accept.
Don. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
What is the motion?
The motion would be to basically accept the work plan for 2020-2021. So Don, you want to state a motion?
Sure, I wasn't sure who it was. I'll make a motion, we approve the Planning and Zoning Board work plan for the years 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Don and Chuck. So roll call vote. Don Hamilton,
Aye.
Nicole Samuel,
Aye.
Mary Jo Hill, Mary Jo.
Sorry. Aye.
Thank you. Chuck, Steve Crutchfield,
Aye.
Jessica Pearson,
Aye.
John Sorrell, Jessica McClure,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well, so that passes unanimously. One last item of business before we adjourn is that staff has brought our request. If you remember at the last meeting, we talked about the 2021 P&Z board calendar, and staff has brought a request to move the November 2021 P&Z board meeting to the week prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. I think we're doing that in hopes that the pandemic is going to be in our rearview mirror and we'll all be able to travel to interesting and exciting places, whether it's go back to the home place, exotic warm climates, or even if it's just to be able to go to Cary Town Hall. So that the official board calendar will be voted on at December 17th council meeting. So that's just for your information. There is no other business before us tonight. That was the last item on our agenda, and I want to thank everyone for participating this evening, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks. Same to you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Good night. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
So,
The meeting's adjourned.
thank you.
Good night.